Tottenham. It's a question. Will they be ending in the top 4? And I think it is yes. What do you reckon,
Okay.
Betson, with what's happening?
You think it's a yes?
I think it's a yes.
That didn't. Wow. Okay. I think a tough reality is set in here. Unfortunately, it's the reality of well, injuries. Injuries do happen, and no amount of happiness or no amount of posturing has Big Ange kind of ready for this. I think that loss was kind of a microcosm of maybe things that were going to show themselves later on in the season anyway. But Maddison down for a while. Van de Ven, I think, is obviously
Big loss.
the punch in the oh man, that's the punch in the face. Romero's dumb red card that puts him out for a while. But these injuries we know are part of the game. But it just doesn't feel like Spurs is going to have the depth to be able to deal with this, and they're out long enough that these fixtures are coming thick and fast. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know, and I'm gonna say third, fourth at best. Beyond this, depending on whether or not Maddison and the crew can come back real healthy. And man, it started off okay against Wolves. It started off okay.
It's true.
But nothing prepares you. I don't care how many injuries you've got to give up 2 injury time goals again, the second fixture in a row, to give up 2 injury time goals to Wolves.
Hey, but it
you know,
was
that
they were
tells
with
me
9 man. They were with 9 man against Chelsea.
It's true.
It's true
Yeah,
that
I hear that.
and I do think that the game against Wolves, they do rely a lot on their fullbacks with Udogie and obviously with James Maddison. But I do think that Wolves deserved that win because Wolves right now at home, Molyneux is becoming like Aston Villa, a bit of a fortress, okay? And against big teams, against the Big Six, Wolves at home in 6 games in 2023 in the Premier League, they got 5 wins. And the last 2 were against Man City and against Tottenham. 2 teams that are balling out in the Premier League. So Pedro Neto, it's working out. Sean Dyche football, okay? I like what I see. I like what I see. But about Tottenham, I completely agree with what you're saying, Bretton. James Maddison out until 2024 is a huge loss for this team. This was literally one of the best players bought in the transfer summer market, okay? And it was Maddison has 3 goals, 5 assists in the Premier League. He was absolutely vital. But I do think we might be talking a lot more about Brennan Johnson. He costs 40 million. That's an important type player that can appear in these types of moments, okay? And I like to see Pedro Porro. No Udogie, but Pedro Porro was very involved in the progressive passes and how the team built up to. So I think he's going to be a player that will be shining ahead in this season. But yes, Burton, you said it. Tottenham need defensive depth, especially now when we see Micky van de Ven out, Romero with a red card, and we obviously need a new striker too with Tottenham, okay? Richarlison is not enough. Son is a lot of times playing striker, but they need to fix it, okay? And honestly, we're going to be mentioning 5 strikers or a lot of strikers that you must know in this podcast ahead, but this is something that they got to address with Ange Postecoglou, that Ange Postecoglou has had the best start I've ever seen from a Tottenham manager, okay? Winning the manager of the month in August, September, October. That is unreal. And improving players like Papsar, Bissouma, they're looking unreal. Pedro Porro was once called one of the worst transfers done by Tottenham. Ridiculous. And Ange Postecoglou is proving all the haters wrong. A new culture is being built. And it's unfortunate, those injuries.
It is unfortunate, as we'll talk about Newcastle in a second, because they're and Manchester United. I mean, they've got injury lists mega long. We don't talk about United's that much because of how much money they've spent to assemble that squad. But listen, Spurs, they're going to be missing a facilitator, and that's what Maddison was. I mean, he was glue. He was absolute glue. And now I'm with you. Brennan Johnson, great talent. Kulusevski, a little bit one-directional at times, but he can have a game when he wants to. And so, all that's great, but who is the facilitator? Who is the organizer? Who is the one that makes sure that each of those guys get a chance
It's
moving forward. And Big Ange, that's going to be a massive challenge for him. And, we talked about, obviously, Nico Jackson turning up the heat for Chelsea to beat Spurs late on against 9 men. But it was Big Ange still playing a high line man, offering up that open goal to him. So I really think Big Ange is going to learn here. And it's just amazing what 1 week does. It's just amazing what 1 week does, considering the tune that you and I have had within 1 week. And I don't think it's a waffling type of situation.
I still have it, mate.
Yeah.
Wolves is a tough team to beat at home. And then, the Chelsea game, look, it happens when you have with 9 men. Situations happen. 2 big injuries with Mickey van der Ven and Maddison. Udogie out. Then you get another player sent out. It just happens. I completely understand. And it's the first time that he's back-to-back losses, and since he's arrived too. So, Big Ange, keep going. Keep going.
And Vicario has asserted himself well, even through this, in my opinion. So, I think you're right. You're good to be rosy about it, or you're good to be confident about it. They didn't get this far to not get and knocked around a little bit and be able to come back. But it is really, really interesting because these are players that will be out as the fixtures grow and grow and grow. I mean, in terms of 3 games in a week, we're talking holiday season. You need these players back, but you also can't rush them back. And that's the thing. And that's the difference between a Manchester City and Spurs right now, is that clear depth, right? That clear depth behind where, okay, it might not be like for like, but they all know their roles. And a lot of this squad is still getting used to them. And I just got to bring up Newcastle for a second, because Newcastle's literally going through kind of a baby version, or pretty much the exact version of this whole thing. They have 12 first squad players, first team players. They have 12 players out the door. Almiron being the latest to fall out, to the point where Kieran Trippier, after the loss to Bournemouth, Kieran Trippier got on. Got into a little bit of a fracas.
He spoke to the fans.
Exactly, spoke to the fans, and he said, "What do you want from us? We're injured. We're playing our best," which is very true. But listen, one thing I got to bring up about Newcastle that Eddie Howe definitely needs to fix: they have won 2 out of 9 road games. 2 out of 9 road games. That's previous to this list growing longer than, a starting 11.
And you're including Champions League.
I'm including Champions League. They still have work that has to be done. But here's the interesting situation with Newcastle. With Spurs, you're going to see it as well. When these players fall, right? Somebody else needs to step up. And it was great to see, even if it was a very tiny silver lining for Newcastle, it was great to see their academy gem, Lewis Millie, 17 years old midfielder, get his first Premier League start. So I hope, that I think anyone with Champions League ambitions, they probably would rather not be starting Lewis Millie just yet. But listen, what is it? Volatility breeds opportunity, right? Craziness breeds opportunity, and that's what's going to happen in these situations for Spurs, for Newcastle, hell, even for Manchester United.
You've said a lot. You've said a lot and compared a lot of situations, in the sense that Tottenham and Newcastle are in the situation of fighting for top 4. And I do believe that they're at that level. Man United too, but Man City, the depth they have made. I think it's Man City and Real Madrid, the best 2 teams in the world right now in terms of depth. The players they have, Modric is on the bench at Real Madrid, and in Man City, you can have like an Alvarez, a Doku, a Grealish. There's no space for everyone. Foden, someone has to be on the bench too. So if Man City win the Premier League this season, Ruben Dias will be winning the Premier League every season he's been at Man City with 4. And it's the first time ever in Premier League history that a team wins 4 Premier League titles in a row. That solidifies 2, Guardiola being the best manager ever. But with top 4, with Tottenham, I believe Tottenham will be finishing top 4. And look, from how things look, I believe Newcastle will be finishing 2 ahead of Man United. It's mad to me, the stat that, Erik ten Hag in his last 5 games, he's got 4 wins. That is propaganda talking bad of him. No, mate. The propaganda is saying that where is Varane? Why is Varane on the bench, Erik Ten Hag? And Ten Hag justified it is about tactical reasons. Oh,
Yeah.
is it? What?
Explain it.
Explain it exactly. Varane is one of the best center backs in the world when he is in form. Why isn't he? Why isn't Casemiro in form? It's embarrassing. And Winter Hoyland, 9 Premier League goals. No, 9 Premier League games, Winter Hoyland, 0. Zero Premier League goals. And that can happen. And when I see Man United play, I don't think it's Winter Hoyland's fault not scoring those goals. He does those runs. He has the expectation to get the ball, but it doesn't land. Anthony, Sancho, Bruno Fernandes, one of the best players at Man United, but you expect more, because that's the heritage of Man United. Top 4.
Well,
Tottenham is completely there. Chelsea, though, Breton.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, because
Yes.
we're talking Tottenham here, top 4. But if we're talking Tottenham here, top 4, we got to know how Chelsea's doing, because that was a big game last week. Do you believe Chelsea will be top 6?
Top 6. Wow. Where did I have them in my predictions? I think I said 7th or 8th. I had them pretty far down there. So no, I'm not convinced. They didn't necessarily play better than Spurs. I think the Romero red card obviously influenced everything. I think they were also wasteful. Hell, there were Chelsea supporters that felt like that was a loss, right? Even though they wound up winning 4-1 or whatever the heck it was. It was a kind of a farce of a game, in my opinion. So we're obviously recording this before the Manchester City game. My guess is that they'll likely be humbled from that. And if not, we have not seen Chelsea even close to their best
Exactly.
yet.
Exactly.
And I don't know whether or not that's going to come anytime soon, because I think there's still a lot of craziness to work through on that roster. But you've obviously got signs pointing in the right direction with some of those players. We obviously know Cole Palmer is one of them, right? And Cole Palmer is nothing if not aggressive and straight for the W. Like, that's what the kid wants, and he's going to go for it. It's whether or not he has a ceiling, and we haven't really found that ceiling just yet with them. And whether I like it. I like what's going on at Chelsea. I think the Manchester City game is going to say a lot. But top 6 in this field, because we're not even talking about Liverpool. We're not even talking about Arsenal.
They played well.
I mean,
I say top 6. Why? Because in this sense of they played against Arsenal really well. I think it was the keeper's fault, Sanchez, not winning that game. And against now Tottenham, if it was 11 against 11, I do think they wouldn't be looking bad against teams that they need to score a goal, that they need a striker, that they close the gaps really well, like a Brentford team, like a Wolves team. They struggle, Chelsea. But an open field game, top teams playing against each other, I think Chelsea has a chance. And Chelsea, why do I think Chelsea, with Pochettino, has a real chance of finishing top 6? It's the list of players. Once Enzo, once Caicedo, once Cole Palmer that wanted to be a player that started in the Premier League. He didn't accept to be a substitute at Man City. Guardiola stated he wasn't happy being a substitute for Mahrez. He says, I want to be that guy. I want to be a starter, because that's what Southgate needs to be impressed, okay, right now. You got Henderson, Calvin Phillips being called up for England, James Ward-Prowse balling out, and he still doesn't get the selection. Cole Palmer knows what he needs. And I believe by the end of the season, if Chelsea is in much better form than it is possible, this is a player called up for the Euros. Enzo, Caicedo, Cole Palmer, Levi Colville, Reece James. These 5 players will have to be vital for Chelsea this season. And Mykhailo Mudryk, second half of the season, I want to see the same thing Rashford did last season. From January onwards, Rashford balled out. I'm expecting that for Mudryk, because that's what more than 70 million costs. I know it's variables, but that's what it costs.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Chelsea their ceiling for me is 6th place. I'll give you that. I don't see it much higher. And you have to. I mean, they've built themselves quite a hole here to get out of.
Premier League has
I'm
Aston Villa, has Brighton, has a Newcastle. Like, the Premier League has never been as stacked as it is right now. Even West Ham spent all the money that they sold from Declan Rice, 160 million, and Kudus, Edson Alvarez, and Ward-Prowse. So the Premier League, That exactly. It's cutthroat. But let us know down below. What are your predictions of the Premier League? What is your top four with Tottenham? Let us know what do you think is going to be happening with Tottenham with Ange Postecoglou.